Hey there folks, this is Greeny welcoming you to a quick first impressions video of 3 anime series that I've recently started watching. Now, the first series is Devil Survivor 2. I think there's only been 3 episodes so far, that I've noticed at the time of this recording at least. It's an anime adaptation of an old video game by the Persona people. I say old, probably about 2010, 2011. I haven't played the game personally, but so far, after 3 episodes, I'm liking it. There's lots of death, lots of mystery, and those are both things that I really like in my anime. I get the impression that it hasn't explained everything quite yet, which is definitely a good thing for me, it's a huge plus. Because if it explained everything early on, then it would probably get really boring early on. Let's split things up now into episode by episode review, if that makes sense. Episode 1 is a clear example of how to grab the viewer's attention from the get-go. It really made me want to see the rest of what was coming, so I watched the next 2 episodes straight away, that sort of thing. The whole demon summoning concept is introduced along with the main characters actually being killed off. Not really, but whatever. A whole mysterious organisation is introduced too. Are they evil? Are they good? It doesn't look like we'll be finding that out quite yet. In this episode at least. And then we go into episode 2. This one's a bit slower, showing that the series won't be completely action-packed like the first episode sort of suggested. It's more about expanding the main characters, as well as the mysterious organisation, and fleshing them out a bit. Of course, it's a bit actiony towards the end. You can't have a whole episode that goes really slow, otherwise it would dull it down. And everyone who thought the first episode was really exciting will probably think the second episode is really boring and will be turned off and walk away. So they had to put a bit of action in towards the end, and it sort of showed that there's no safe haven in this in the world that this series is placed in. I'm not quite sure what world it is. Probably Earth. Of course, it's Earth. But yeah, even I think it's a church, because there's stained glass windows and everything, but it doesn't actually say the word church. It gets attacked, and that shows that there is no safe place to go. Episode 3, I found this one a little bit dull, like episode 2 could have been, like I just explained. It introduces a few more characters and generally builds on the predicted deaths idea. We get to see this time that just because they get shown a death through their phone doesn't mean that they're going to save a character. I don't think that's a spoiler. No, I don't think it is. So we're going to be shown it at some point anyway. Overall, it's worth watching for sure, but there's one minor flaw that I can see so far, and that is that none of the characters are particularly interesting. They're quite bland and generic. To me, at least. The dark atmosphere, high tension, and incredible monster design are what's going to keep me coming back for episode 4 and further though. But I think that's just because the game built that up, and they just sort of shoved it into the anime, and it just works. It's not because the anime designers did anything particularly well, apart from the adaptation and chucking it all together. So far, if I had to rank this, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's better than some series, but not quite reaching the mark for me. Maybe if I'd played the game, I'd get more nostalgia out of it and like it more. I think that's what most of the hype is coming from for this series, and why most people like it. That's the impression I get, at least. What's series number 2? Hold on a sec. Sword Art Online. Okay, I've only seen 1 episode of this so far, even though the whole series is finished. But I'll give my impressions of it so far anyway. There was a hell of a lot of hype surrounding this one as well, and the first episode makes me believe that it's well deserved. I really think so. It's got a great concept with the whole die in the MMO and you will die in real life thing going on. There's an interesting main character who has played the MMO before, but he's sort of an expert. I'm used to seeing characters that are so vulnerable and weak and just crap. So it's a nice change to see them actually able to actually play the game or follow the rules of this anime. The main selling point that I can see so far is actually the villain though. He's only delivered the bad news in this episode, but there's no reason why he can't evolve into something pretty epic. If he even returns in the series at all, I don't know. The fact that you don't even get to meet the real person behind the online avatar is what makes this villain even more interesting, I think. I mean, you see what he looks like, but only from a photo. He doesn't show up as such. Okay, I promised myself that I'd chuck some criticisms in here, so here we go. The fact that we have only met 2 characters so far is a bit strange to me, considering how many people are wandering around the MMO world. I'm sure more will get introduced as the series goes on. I'm sure they will. Also the fact that the avatars are given their real life appearances. In episode 1, I find this a bit strange as well, and I think it's a bit of a downer, because the avatar characters, how they look in the MMO, I think is more interesting to watch than the real life characters. That might just be me, but these are the downsides that I can see. As for rank, I think 7 out of 10 is a good one for this. It's way too early for me to give a proper rank, I guess, after 1 episode, but yeah, it's too early to say if it's any good, but so far it's not quite unique enough to grab my attention. The concept is pretty unique. I haven't seen it before, but I don't watch much anime as such. But it doesn't grab me as quite unique enough. I'll definitely watch more though. Don't get me wrong. Now, the 3rd series is Flowers of Evil. And here's my last series for this little preview, I guess you call it. I've seen 2 episodes to this series, as that's all that's been released over here so far at the time of recording, and it's the shock of the season. I really love it. The series is horror, and the first episode lets know that straight away. It's subtle, but it lays the scares out here all the same. I can't think of a single time throughout the first episode where I fully understood the concept until the very end though, when the plant is shown metaphorically growing and the end music slowly merged into the main music and the end credits is rolled. And that end music, that's something I gotta mention. It's so weird. It feels sort of low budget, but I think it needed to in order for it to work as well as it did, because it sort of sounds like children just doing like a song in school, one of those sort of nursery rhymes. But it does it well, it really does. There's no music as such behind it, apart from maybe a little bit of music, but you can't notice it too much, you know. And this is the main point of Flowers of Evil. It's all about the metaphors and subtlety. The art style is very Marmite too, so this series just isn't going to be for everyone. I can see that being the case. But for me personally, it's pretty perfect. I'll mention some downsides, don't worry. Time for an episode breakdown. Episode 1 had me wondering right through what sort of anime this would be, because it all seemed like it would be a very serious look at life as a student, and it was incredibly slow to start. But this gave so much room to introduce the characters without being blunt and throwing them in your face. From the weird, partially antisocial main character, to his crush, to the disturbed girl who sits behind him in class. You'll get some sort of vibe for each of them by the end of the episode. Like I mentioned earlier, this episode ends on a creepy note, when the main character goes to grab his crush's gym clothes when all the students have left the class. And this is where episode 2 picks up. It's where episode 2 sort of blends together and starts making sense. The anime starts making sense, I mean. Episode 2 is a bit more eventful. Instead of introducing the characters, it starts to build on them and everything like that, and has the creepy girl who sits behind the main character come into her own properly. She is going to blackmail and be a proper bitch. There's not much more to say about her, I don't think. She saw the whole gym clothes incident happen, so she's going to make Kasuga, the main character, pay for what he did. For what reason exactly, I don't know. I think she's just supposed to be a bit unhinged, but in quite an intelligent way, as shown in the end. Anyways, The rating for this one is a very good 8.5 out of 10 so far. I like to stress that in this first impressions because it could go up, it could go down. Anime can start good, start bad, get worse, get better. 8.5 out of 10. This may surprise some people who have checked this series out, but it's so unique and it shocked me so much with the heavy atmosphere and the amount of subtlety dripping out of every pore. I highly recommend you guys check it out at least. Just be prepared for the slow pace. It is incredibly slow. Anyway, and with that, we are done. I hope you've enjoyed and that I didn't blabber on about a load of crap too much. If you fancy seeing any more of this sort of stuff, give me a shout. I'm sure this wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, so any comments would be amazing. Oh, finally I want to say a big thanks for the 130 subs. This might not seem like much to you guys, but to me it's quite a lot. It's taken me quite a while to get here, so I'm quite proud of getting up to 130. Anyways, see you in a bit.